Today I'm implementing two more commands into the build script. The first is going to be for creating static library archive files like the .lib file on Windows. The other is for making unit builds more convenient, where by unit build I mean the kind of program where you just have one source file that you compile as a single compilation unit to create the program rather than having multiple compilation units from your code base linked together. So that's the two commands we're going for today. Let's get started. The library command is a lot like the link command. It takes an output name and then a list of source files and object files that will be bundled into the archive or library file. And then after that, there's a optional double dash and list of options. It then compiles all of the source files that got passed to it to turn them into more object files, and then collects together all of the object files that it got from the input line and all the object files it got from compiling the sources. And that's what gets passed to the actual archive builder command. Just like the link command, it also corrects the object file extension so that it matches whatever the currently selected compiler is. So that if you have, CL, the Microsoft compiler selected, then whatever object file naming scheme you passed in, it switches to OBJ behind the scenes. This is a separate command from linking just because the commands are very different at the low level. The command lines we have to build look very different. They use different programs. They don't have any flags in common. In fact, they don't even really need flags. I'm not using a flags file for this particular step. The command for the compiling that happens to build the intermediates uses the flags file for compiling. That's where the options go. But there's nothing to actually control about how these files get created because they are really simply just stitching together the object files you pass to them. There's not a whole lot to it. Next up, let's do the unit command. For this command, I'm not just copying the basic setup that was in the previous iteration like I have on the other commands. I kind of want to tweak this anyways because this command has never quite seemed right to me. The whole idea of it is to make it a short, easy line for common and throwaway builds so that it's not like a lot of typing to set up one easy common case. But it's never been super effective at that, so it's not, that's why I'm still tweaking with this one. So for this iteration, what I'm trying to do differently is first I'm cutting down the capabilities and I'm limiting it to one source file like I originally planned. It's sort of grown to the point where I was stuffing multiple compilation units in there, even though that wasn't really the spirit of it. So I'm cutting it back down to just the capability of doing one single compilation unit build. And the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to throw in a default rule for how the output name is selected to make it possible to slim down even more in a lot of cases. So the new default rule is going to be if there are no options provided after the source name, then the source name itself will be used to figure out the output. So if I pass in a main.cpp, then the output file that the command produces will be main.exe. But if I include anything after this first source file, the rest of the options are, or the rest of the inputs are considered options, and the first option will be used as the name of the output instead. So I won't have what I previously had as a special argument before the source file that was the output name. Now I think this way means that you can ally that extra parameter and sort of pack things in more tightly in a lot of cases where that's what you're trying to go for. So hopefully this is a little bit more in the spirit of what this command is supposed to do. Besides just automatically having an output name and limiting it to one input source file, the other thing that this command supplies that sort of makes the link command a little easier to work with is that it takes the options out of the source file and includes them in the link options, which is not the normal rule, right? So normally when we have a link command, all of the source files get compiled and the options that are bundled into those source files are included in the compile steps that turn the source file into object files. But since there are multiple objects potentially during a link, we don't use any of those options in the link line. Once in a while, it's useful to have a single file that just defines an exe you want to make and have that single file include options that will control how the link works. So that is just another convenience that the unit script provides so that you don't have to retype the options that are in the source file on the link line. With that, I have all of the basic build commands that I need in my script, so I can start moving my existing scripts over to this new system, and I want to do that before I wrap up this episode today. Just make sure we got everything up and running and we can cut those old scripts out today, which will be nice. So let's go do that real quick. Okay, that went over quite well. So the code base is now officially moved over to the BLD script, and that's pretty awesome. I was able to get rid of the old scripts, and we'll be able to manage Clang pretty soon too. Now that it's pretty easy to flip back and forth and figure out what we need to do there. But we're not quite done setting up the build scripts yet. I still have that list of things I wasn't quite sure about what I wanted to do, or where I hadn't quite finished transitioning some of the extra features like diagnostics and printing out the state of the options, and I have a number of just useful features from the old script I want to preserve, and I want to fix a few more problems, upgrade the script again in this iteration before I stop working on it. So next time we'll start working through that list of ideas I had for improving the script a bit more. See you then.